Cole was supposed to be my husband, but he was always so cold to me. He wouldn't let me kiss him, hug him, and definitely not sleep with him. Finally, I'd had enough and just went for broke. When he was drugged one night, I took matters into my own hands and slept with him. That night, Cole held me and we made love for hours. But in the heat of the moment, he called out his junior partner's name. The next day, my heart turned to ash. I left, swearing I'd never see him again. 6 years later, however, while I was out buying my daughter a popsicle, Cole suddenly blocked my path. His eyes were red-rimmed, his voice hoarse. "Christine, how could you just steal something of mine and run?" Me, the one who stole his little swimmers, trembled in fear. "He's not going to try and take my daughter from me, is he?" Cole was an orphan my dad took in. He was also my childhood sweetheart, the boy I was meant to marry. He was quiet and cold and rarely smiled, but he took great care of me. When we were little, we ate together, played together, and slept in the same bed. We were inseparable. But from the time he turned 16, he suddenly started avoiding me like the plague. He began locking his bedroom door to keep me from crawling into his bed at night. His entire wardrobe became high-collared shirts, and he even refused to go swimming with me, as if terrified I'd try to take advantage of him. If I so much as touched his arm, he'd tense up and pull away. I was incredibly hurt. "Do I have the plague or something? Are you that disgusted by me?" He avoided my gaze. "I'm not disgusted. I'm just not used to being so close to people." What a load of crap. He wasn't close with anyone. But I was his fiancée. How was that the same? I was so mad I gave him the silent treatment for a month. At 17, obsessed with romance novels, I wanted to see what it felt like to kiss Cole. But he just turned his head, avoiding my lips, and said flatly, "If you can finish first in our class, I'll let you kiss me." He knew perfectly well that with my brain, I couldn't pull that off in a million years. He just clearly didn't want to kiss me. Furious, I blurted out whatever came to mind. "You really think you're such a catch? Fine, don't kiss me. I'll go find someone else to kiss." I turned to storm off. But he grabbed my arm. There was a quiet fury in his eyes, and the pressure was immense. "Christine, if you dare, we'll call off the engagement." All the fight went out of me in an instant. I was the one who had asked for this engagement. How could I bear to end it? I awkwardly tried to save face. "It was just a joke. Why are you being so serious?" His expression softened slightly. "Don't joke about things like that again," he warned. I pouted. "I know." At 18, Cole, who had promised to go to the same university as me, changed his application to a school in another state without telling me. I cried my eyes out, calling him a huge liar. He stood there silently, letting me vent my anger. When I had cried myself out, he handed me a handkerchief. "Wipe your tears." I angrily swatted his hand away and said spitefully, "Aren't you afraid I'll fall for another guy at college if you're not there?" I thought he would lecture me like before, telling me not to say such things. But this time, he lowered his eyes in thought for a moment, then gave a faint, wry smile. "If you find a good guy who likes you, you can try dating him. You don't have to worry about me." At the time, I was too busy being angry at him for breaking his promise and pushing me towards someone else to notice the bitterness and helplessness in his smile. I kicked his knee, fuming with embarrassment. "Since you're so desperate to leave me, then get lost. The farther, the better. I hope I never see you again in my life." I meant every word of that threat, but 6 months later, I couldn't stop myself from going to Cole's school to try and make up with him. When he saw me, his perpetually stoic face showed a flicker of surprise before returning to normal. He took me out to eat, arranged a place for me to stay, showed me the sights, took pictures for me, and walked me through the night market to buy souvenirs. He had planned everything perfectly, yet I couldn't feel a single ounce of warmth from him. He was like a tour guide, polite and distant throughout the trip, with none of our old closeness. Before he dropped me off at the airport, he reached out and gently ruffled my hair. The gesture was tender, but his words were anything but what I wanted to hear. Enjoy your college life. Don't waste your time coming to see me anymore. If you meet a decent guy, you can give him a chance. My eyes instantly welled up. It was only then that I belatedly realized he probably really did want to get rid of me. From then on, my relationship with Cole was lukewarm at best. Until after we graduated from college, when my dad told me that Cole wasn't planning on coming back. My dad had given him some startup capital, and he had found some success with his business in New York City and decided to stay there long term. That night, unable to sleep, I was scrolling online and came across the Instagram account of Cole's junior partner, Kristen. Another all-nighter with my senior partner writing a proposal. He's so thoughtful, he even remembered I love spicy wontons and got me a huge order. Exhausted but happy. In the corner of the photo, the veined wrist wore a watch I had given Cole for his 18th birthday. I had met Kristen before. She was beautiful, with a bright, bold smile that was incredibly charming. She and Cole had a great relationship. They had entered a lot of competitions together in college and later started a business together. They were the most in sync partners. So in sync that Cole could say one simple thing, and Kristen would know exactly what kind of proposal he wanted. But I never knew that Cole took such good care of her in private. In that moment, I was struck with the terrifying realization that I might be about to lose Cole for good. But I had truly loved him for too many years. I wasn't willing to give up so easily and decided to fight for my own happiness one last time. So I bought a plane ticket that night and flew to New York. Cole's company was swamped, and he was constantly busy. I was in New York for almost 2 weeks, and he left early and came home late every day. I barely saw him. Our chat window was just a long stream of my one-sided messages. And his replies were as monotonous as an alarm clock. I bought you breakfast, remember to eat when you get up. Ordered you lunch, it'll be there soon. Have to work late, won't be home for dinner. I ordered you some soup and other dishes. I was getting discouraged and texted my best friend to complain. What do I have to do to make him less cold to me? Her reply was shocking. I heard men fall in lust before they fall in love. Have you tried sleeping with him? I was floored. Isn't that a bit much? Then just wait for the wedding invitation from him and his junior partner. The thought of that made my nose sting, and a tear rolled down my cheek. My friend told me to look on the bright side. Don't overthink it. If you actually win him over in bed, then it's a happy ending for everyone. And even if you don't, you might not have gotten his heart, but at least you got his body. It's not a total loss. I sniffled. She kind of had a point. I was at the end of my rope anyway, so I might as well throw caution to the wind. Just as I was trying to figure out how to pounce on Cole, fate handed me the perfect opportunity. That night, Cole was at a business dinner where someone drugged his drink. He called and asked me to take him to the hospital. No way was I doing that. The second I got in the car, I climbed onto his lap and kissed him fiercely. At first, he tried to push me away. Christine, don't mess around. But the drug was too strong. He finally surrendered to my advances. Right before we went all the way, he held the back of my neck, pecking at my lips, and asked in a husky voice, "Are you sure you won't regret this?" I shook my head, my voice firm. No regrets. The instant the words left my mouth, he conquered my defenses. Our bodies fit together perfectly, and it felt like the distance between our hearts was shrinking too. In such an intimate moment, I couldn't stop myself from asking, "Cole, can you please like me? I promise I'll be good from now on and won't lose my temper with you anymore. Please don't like someone else, okay?" Hearing that, he suddenly stopped and looked at me in silence. The emotions in his deep eyes were too complex for me to understand. Just as I was about to ask what he was thinking, he suddenly picked up the pace, shattering the words on my lips. I couldn't speak, nor did I have the energy to think anymore. My whole body was like a fish on a cutting board, being flipped and seared over and over again. The battlefield shifted to his apartment. Cole carried me from the living room to the bedroom. I never knew his stamina was this incredible. He was like a tireless machine. But I was truly exhausted and had long forgotten my goal of seducing him. I pushed at him, dissatisfied. "I want to sleep. Let me sleep." He cooed in my ear, "Shoo, it's almost over." That gentle voice overlapped with the Cole I remembered from our youth. Back then, he would hold my hand as we walked through streets and alleys. He would carry me home on his back after I playfully jumped on him. When I couldn't sleep, he would lie with me under the same blanket and tell me stories until I drifted off. But the grown-up Cole pushed me 1,000 miles away, his coldness breaking my heart. I suddenly felt a wave of sadness, and tears began to well in the corners of my eyes. He leaned down and kissed them away. "Don't cry." As he pressed into me as deep as he could, he whispered in my ear, "Chris, I love you." I passed out in a daze, not really hearing those last words clearly. When I woke up again, I was alone in the room. I wrapped the blanket around myself and sat up, staring at the empty space, my heart filled with loneliness. I don't know how much time passed before a notification popped up on my private Instagram account. I opened it. Kristen had a new post. "My senior partner asked me out this morning. Hee, guess I'm officially off the market." His voice is so magnetic. I love it when he calls me Chris, I melt every time. The picture was of 2 hands tightly clasped. And the watch on the man's wrist was the one he had taken off last night and left on my pillow. I suddenly remembered last night's hazy "Chris, I love you," and realized it really wasn't meant for me. That Chris, not this Chris. Of course, how could it have been for me? From the time he was 18, he only ever called me by my full name, Christine. I hadn't heard him use an intimate nickname for me in 4 years. He had also never said he liked me, not once in the 13 years we'd known each other. It had always been my one-sided wishful thinking, forcing him to be my betrothed, forcing him to go to the same school as me, and then taking advantage of him when he was drugged. He must hate me. That's why, after the drug wore off, he couldn't even bear to look at me and ran off to confess his love to the woman he truly cared about. I felt like a clown for doing something so shameful and despicable. I couldn't face Cole anymore, and I certainly couldn't keep chasing him. Otherwise, I'd just be the other woman, the one everyone scorns. I tearfully deleted my Instagram account, vowing never to stalk Kristen again. Then I blocked Cole on everything. I packed my bags and left. 6 years later, I went to pick up my daughter from preschool. Zoe, with her little backpack on, was looking with a mix of longing and envy at the other kids who were walking home holding both their mom's and dad's hands. When she saw me, she immediately put on a smile, ran over to take my hand, and chirped, "Mommy, I missed you so much." The little girl was very considerate. She had asked me once where her daddy was, but after seeing my eyes turn red, she never brought up the subject of her father again. It wasn't that I was sad because I still had feelings for Cole. With time, I had forgotten most of what happened. I just felt sorry for my daughter. Because of my one-sided decision, she had to grow up in a single-parent home, missing a father's love. It felt a little unfair to her. But what was done was done. All I could do was give her more of my love to make up for it. I took Zoe's backpack and gently ruffled her hair. "Mommy missed you too." She chattered happily, telling me all about her day at preschool. Then she said proudly, "Mommy, I got first place in the race today." Wow, my Zoe is so amazing. Of course. I'm your daughter, so of course I'm amazing. I smiled and tapped her little nose. So what reward does my amazing Zoe want? She blinked, testing the waters. "Can I have an ice cream?" Her stomach wasn't the best, so I rarely let her eat cold things. But seeing the hopeful look in her eyes today, I couldn't bring myself to say no. "Okay." She jumped for joy. Yay! Mommy's the best. There was a convenience store nearby. I held Zoe's hand and we walked over. Just as we reached the entrance, before my left foot even crossed the threshold, a figure rushed toward me and grabbed my wrist tightly. I was startled, thinking it was a mugger, and was about to kick him. But when I turned my head, I was suddenly face to face with Cole. I froze. His eyes were red-rimmed, his voice hoarse. "Christine, how could you just steal something of mine and run?" My heart pounded in my chest, and I was speechless. My daughter peeked out from behind me and asked curiously, "Mommy, who is this man?" Cole's body went rigid, and his gaze slowly shifted to Zoe. He looked at her in disbelief, his voice trembling. "Christine, is she?" Cole's reaction was so intense, it was obvious he suspected Zoe was his child. I was incredibly thankful Zoe was wearing a mask. Because of it, Cole couldn't see that her nose and mouth were a perfect copy of his. My story with him had ended 6 years ago. It shouldn't be starting up again. So, without hesitation, I lied. "This is my husband's and my daughter. It has nothing to do with you." Cole's pupils trembled, and his words came out haltingly. You're married?" My tone was breezy. "It's been 6 years. Is it so strange that I'm married?" His face was so pale it could be described as ashen, which only made his red-rimmed eyes look more startling. He looked like he was on the verge of tears but fighting them back with all his might. I didn't understand why he looked so pained. After all, the person he truly loved was Kristen, not me. It couldn't be that after I left, he suddenly realized I was the one he loved, right? The thought flickered through my mind for a second before I dismissed it. How could he possibly love me? There were too many obstacles between us. I'd be lucky if he didn't hate me. I didn't want anything more to do with him either. I quickly bought a popsicle and got my daughter into the car. Cole remained standing there like a statue, not leaving for a long time. Zoe quietly leaned against the car window, looking back. Only when the car turned a corner and Cole's figure disappeared completely did she pull her gaze away. Then, she looked down, silently twisting her fingers, a far cry from the cheerful little chatterbox she usually was. I had a good idea of what she was thinking. After all, her mouth and nose were a spitting image of Cole's. On top of that, Cole's emotional roller coaster was obvious to anyone. Anyone could see we had a complicated history. I sighed silently, wondering how to explain things to Zoe. But she remained silent all the way until I parked in the underground garage. Maybe she saw how much I wanted to avoid Cole and was afraid that asking would upset me. My daughter had always been so sweet and considerate. I stroked her hair and said softly, "You weren't wrong. That man just now was your father." Zoe looked up, her eyes red. "Mommy, was it because he bullied you that you didn't want me to meet him? When we were little, Cole treated me like a princess. After we grew up, although he was cold, he never said a harsh word to me, let alone did anything to hurt me. I was always the one who was willful and quick to anger. No, your father is a very good person. He just doesn't like me, and that's not his fault." She suddenly threw her arms around me, burying her face in my shoulder, and said in a muffled voice, "If he doesn't like you, then I don't like him either. Mommy, you're the most important person to me." She clearly wanted a father, but she would always put me first. A wave of warmth washed over me. I gently patted her back and smiled. Zoe is Mommy's most important person, too. I thought that chance encounter would be the last time I saw Cole. I didn't expect him to show up at my door 2 weeks later. I frowned. "What are you doing here?" He got straight to the point. "You said you were married. Why has your husband never come home?" My heart skipped a beat. "Are you spying on me?" "Not spying. Just concerned about you." "I don't need your concern. My husband is on a business trip. He'll be back in a few days." "Oh. Then why did your neighbor say she's never seen your husband in the 5 years you've lived here? You're not going to tell me he's been on a business trip for 5 years, are you?" He had clearly come prepared, even getting my neighbor on his side. I forced myself to keep up the lie. "I'm divorced, okay?" "Of course," he said bluntly. "Then please explain this. If Zoe is your and your ex-husband's daughter, why does she look so much like me? Or, how about I go get a DNA test? It seemed that in the past 2 weeks, he had thoroughly investigated my daughters and my past. There was no point in denying it any longer. My face pale, I asked helplessly, even if Zoe is your daughter, so what? Can you be a responsible father? He bristled at my doubt. How do you know I can't be a good dad? Christine, you won't even give me a chance. How can you sentence me without a trial? I didn't get it. Isn't Kristen the one you love? Since you two are together, if you want a child, let her have one for you. Zoe is my daughter alone. She only needs me. She doesn't need you. Cole looked as if he'd heard something unbelievable. What does Kristen have to do with this? We're just colleagues. She's been with Sam for 6 years. He said, stunned. I froze. It took me a moment to remember that Sam was Cole's college roommate and also Kristen's senior partner. So, I had been wrong this whole time. My eyes fell on Cole's wrist. He had been wearing this watch since he was 18, for 10 years now. The strap was a bit worn, but he still hadn't replaced it. I bit my lip. Doesn't Sam have a watch that's the same as the one I gave you? Cole nodded. Yes, Sam's was a gift from his mom. But he only wore it for 2 years before it broke and he got a new one. So, it was all just a big misunderstanding. Cole finally pieced it together. So the reason you blocked me and ran off that day, avoiding me for 6 whole years, was because you thought Kristen and I were together? I remained silent. He took a step closer, his gaze burning into me, and for the first time, he opened his heart to me. Chris, the only person I've ever loved, from beginning to end, is you. There has never been anyone else. I once desperately wanted him to love me. But now, all I felt was a profound sense of helplessness. The memory of the folder I accidentally found in his apartment when I left 6 years ago was suffocating. I swallowed past the lump in my throat and spoke with difficulty. There's more than just a misunderstanding between us, isn't there? Cole, you say you love me, but what about your father who died? His body went rigid, and his eyes gradually turned red. I gave a bitter smile, reminding him, you pushed me away again and again back then, telling me to date other guys. Wasn't it all because you found out my dad was your enemy? The reason Cole became an orphan was due to an accident. When he was 6, an earthquake struck a nearby city. The area where he and his father lived was also affected. However, the other buildings were well constructed and weren't seriously damaged. But the 7-story building where he and his father lived collapsed because the construction company had cut corners. The accident resulted in 9 injuries and 1 death. The person who unfortunately died was Cole's father. Shortly after, the head of the construction team was arrested and jailed. Cole, now an orphan, was taken in by his uncle. But his uncle and aunt were only after his father's inheritance. Once they got the compensation money and savings, the couple showed their true colors and took pleasure in tormenting Cole. They wouldn't let him eat, drink, or even sleep. When he escaped, he was covered in injuries, so thin his chest stuck to his back, with barely any life left in him. Dizzy and weak from hunger, he fell into a deep pit and couldn't climb out. He thought he was going to die there. It was Christine, on a picnic with her family, who found him and had her father, Mr. Yu, rescue him. No matter how many years passed, he always remembered Christine tugging on Mr. Yu's sleeve, begging, "Daddy, let's take him home. He has so many injuries, someone must have beaten him. If we leave, what if the bad guys bully him again?" Mr. Yu doted on his daughter, so he granted her wish. After Cole joined the Yu family, the father and daughter treated him like their own. He had enough to eat and warm clothes to wear, and his life was peaceful and happy. But Christine never called him brother. Cole clearly remembered the first time Mr. Yu told her to call him brother. Christine shook her head, clutching her doll. "No, he's so pretty. He's going to be my husband when we grow up." The adults burst into laughter. But all Cole could think was that Christine's big, watery eyes, blinking at him, were even cuter than the doll she was holding. Later, as she grew up day by day, she became more and more beautiful. When she was 16, Cole had a dream he shouldn't have had and woke up with his pajama pants wet. He was utterly mortified, cursing himself for being so dirty. Christine was so perfect, and he had defiled her in his dreams. From that day on, he deliberately restrained himself and kept a proper distance from her. Christine was very angry, thinking he had become cold. But Cole knew very well that he wasn't being cold, he was just afraid of losing control of the demon stirring in his heart and laying his hands on her. Of course he longed to be close to Christine, but all of that had to wait until she was an adult. He had already picked out a gift and was planning to confess his feelings to her after graduation. But the day before his planned confession, he accidentally discovered a shocking secret. It turned out that the real culprit behind the building collapse was Christine's father, Mr. Yu, who was the developer. The construction manager was just a scapegoat Mr. Yu had paid off. In that instant, Cole felt his world crumble. The respected adoptive father had become the murderer of his biological father. The girl he loved had become his enemy's daughter. He knew he could never be happy in this life. He couldn't betray his father, so he couldn't pretend he knew nothing and date Christine. He also couldn't hurt Christine. She was the person he held in his heart, the one who had saved his life. She was so innocent and naive she would never be able to accept that her father was a bad person. He didn't want to destroy her beautiful life. He couldn't love, he couldn't hate, so all he could do was leave. He changed his college application and went to a city 1,000 miles away, trying to erase Christine from his life. But that foolish girl traveled all that way to see him. He wanted so badly to hug her, to tell her how much he missed her. Instead, he went against his heart and told her that if she met a suitable guy, she should try dating him. She cried so hard, like a child who had lost her candy. Seeing her tears, his heart felt like it was being pierced by countless poison needles, the pain making it hard to breathe. But there was no other way. He had to do this. They were destined to have no future together. He had to make her give up on him as soon as possible. But Christine was truly foolish and refused to give up. Throughout their college years, she continued to care for him. When the weather got cold, she would text him, reminding him to wear more clothes. When she found out his stomach was bothering him, she immediately found a traditional Chinese doctor, got him some medicine, and mailed it to him. For his birthday, she would have a gift ready 2 weeks in advance. Even though he was so cold to her, even though she was disappointed and sad, she would turn around and offer him her whole heart again. He truly felt for her. Sometimes he wondered if her life would have been happier if he had never met her. But if they had never met, what memories would he have to get through this long and painful life? But in the end, everything spun out of control. The day he was drugged, Christine climbed onto his lap and kissed him. Two little figures were fighting in his mind. One said, "Push her away, you can't ruin her life." The other said, "Hold her tight, this is your last chance at happiness." In the end, he gave in to the love in the deepest part of his heart. He became one with her. That night, he couldn't even bring himself to sleep, watching her until dawn. She slept peacefully in his arms, and he felt like he owned the whole world. He suddenly didn't want to care about revenge anymore. He greedily thought that his life had been so bitter, he should let himself keep this one sweet thing. He knew he was letting his father down. If there were any consequences, he would bear them alone. For the rest of his life, he only wanted his little princess to be happy. Exhausted from the night's activities, Christine slept very soundly. He had to go to the office to handle some things and didn't want to wake her, so he left a note on the bedside table, telling her not to run off and to wait for him to come back. But when he finished his work, she had vanished. He was blocked on every platform. He didn't understand what had happened. He searched for her everywhere like a madman. But no one knew where she had gone. He had to accept the fact. She had stolen his heart and then abandoned him. Just when he had finally decided to let go of all the hatred and start over, she left him. Cole was in agony and despair, and he stumbled through the next 6 years in a daze. Perhaps it was all fated. After that wild night 6 years ago, I didn't see the note Cole left, but I did see Kristen's post. Then, as I was packing my things to leave, I stumbled upon a folder. Inside was all the evidence Cole had collected on my dad's crimes. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning, and I couldn't stop shaking. And I finally understood why, after he turned 18, Cole had become so cold to me. Who would fall in love with their enemy's daughter? The fact that he hadn't come in while my dad and I were sleeping and finished us both off with a knife was a testament to his kindness. The corners of the pages were worn and frayed. It was obvious Cole had had this evidence for a long time. He had never submitted it to the authorities, and I figured it was probably because he was sentimental about our past. He was grateful for my dad raising him and for me saving his life. But if my dad hadn't done something wrong, Cole never would have lost his father in the first place, and he wouldn't have needed me to save him. I couldn't face Cole anymore, and I didn't want to see my dad either. So, after taking photos of the 30 pages of documents and putting the folder back where I found it, I didn't go home. Instead, I chose to go to a city where no one knew me. I registered a new email address and anonymously sent the evidence to the relevant authorities. Besides being responsible for the building collapse, my dad was also involved in some illegal business dealings. Unsurprisingly, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. After hearing my story, Cole asked in disbelief, "You were the one who reported your own father?" He never knew I had seen the evidence he collected. He naturally assumed a business rival had intentionally set my dad up. I nodded. Yes. I had hesitated for a full 2 months back then. My dad was truly a good father. Growing up, he never once raised his voice at me. Whatever I wanted, even if it was the moon in the sky, he would find a way to get it for me. But he had also committed a crime. Cole could be kind, but I couldn't, knowing the truth, continue to protect him. People who do wrong should be punished otherwise. How could the dead rest in peace? So, in the end, I chose justice over family. Cole forced a bitter smile. Back then, I didn't dare let you know what your dad had done. I was afraid you wouldn't be able to handle it. I was too narrow-minded. Chris, you're much stronger than I ever imagined. I know. In his eyes, I had probably always been a willful crybaby. But people have to grow up. I couldn't live in an ivory tower forever. I had to face reality, take care of myself and my child. What choice did I have but to be strong? 7 days after reporting my dad, I found out I was pregnant. At first, I actually considered getting an abortion. I was worried I couldn't handle the responsibility of being a mother, and I was afraid that growing up in a single-parent home would affect my child's personality. So I made an appointment at a clinic. But lying on the operating table, I regretted it. At that time, I had lost my father and I had lost Cole. I was so incredibly lonely. This child was the only family I had left, a comfort to me. So in the end, I chose to keep her. I knew it was a bit unfair to the child. That's why after Zoe was born, I gave her all my love and focused all my energy on her. Zoe's health was a bit delicate, and she got sick easily when she was little. One night, she had a high fever from indigestion, and I frantically rushed her to the hospital. I ran so fast down the stairs that I lost a shoe. It wasn't until she was on an 4 drip that I suddenly realized a piece of glass was embedded in the sole of my foot. As I talked about this, I smiled. You know how I've always been afraid of pain. When I was little, I'd cry my eyes out if I just bumped into the corner of a table. But that night, with my foot bleeding all over the floor, I didn't shed a single tear. So you weren't wrong to praise me. I really have gotten stronger. I was smiling, but Cole's face was pale, his eyes filled with heartache. He reached out and hugged me, patting my back soothingly, his voice hoarse. Chris, I'm so sorry. You've had it so hard these past few years. From now on, I won't let you face these things alone. Come home with me. I promise I'll take good care of you and our daughter. His embrace was so warm. So warm it made me not want to leave. Actually, before today, my days were so busy that I rarely thought about the past. Because of that, I thought I had long forgotten Cole. But today, 6 years later, as he stood before me, telling me I was the only one he ever loved, that he had been searching for me all these years, that he had long let go of his hatred for my sake. My heart, which had been silent for so long, began to stir. I suddenly realized that I had probably never stopped loving him. I just thought there was a deep-seated feud between us and that we had no future, so I forced myself to lock my heart away, forced myself not to think about him. I thought that not thinking about him meant I no longer loved him. But after all these years, he had already taken root in my heart. How could I possibly forget him? I was only fooling myself. I paused for a moment, then asked him for confirmation. Cole, are you sure you can really let go of the past? I don't want you to regret this one day and push me away again. He eagerly expressed his feelings. I will never push you away again. Chris, I figured it out a long time ago. We shouldn't have to bear the grudges of the previous generation. Besides, we've wasted so many years, and we've been in pain for so many years. We've paid a high enough price. Let the past be the past. Let's start over. From now on, our family of 3 will live happily ever after. He was right. We had been in pain for so long. Isn't it time we embraced happiness? Cole continued to whisper words of love in my ear. Chris, you have no idea how much I've missed you these past 6 years. 6 years, over 2,000 nights, and I haven't had a single good night's sleep. I really regret it. I regret ever pushing you away. I should have told you sooner that I love you, and only you. The person I want to spend the rest of my life with has only ever been you. He held me tightly, as if I were a long-lost treasure. And amidst his declarations of love, I raised my arms and hugged him back. Cole, since we still love each other, let's be together, okay? In an instant, his tears began to fall. It was the first time I had ever seen him cry. Hot tears dripped onto the side of my neck, and my fingers curled slightly. He nodded firmly, his voice resolute. Okay. We'll be together. Perhaps because of the blood connection, and because Cole was truly devoted to us, Zoe accepted him very quickly. At the school's parent-child day, it was the first time she had both her mom and dad with her, and Zoe was so excited she was practically dancing. Later, after Cole helped her win several games in a row, she couldn't stop grinning. She hugged the prizes Cole had won for her and said proudly, "A lot of kids used to make fun of me for not having a dad. Today, they all came and apologized to me. They even said they had no idea my dad was so handsome and so cool." She meant it as a compliment for Cole. But Cole's eyes suddenly turned red. He lovingly stroked Zoe's hair. "I'm sorry. Dad made you and Mom suffer these past few years. Now that Dad's here, I'll never let anyone bully you two again." Zoe shook her head. "I didn't suffer. Mom had it hard, having to work and take care of me. Daddy, you have to love Mommy a whole lot from now on, okay?" Cole fought back tears. Okay. He didn't break his promise. In the days that followed, he truly showed his love for me and our daughter through his actions. After my dad went to prison 6 years ago, Cole had been managing the Yu family's business. Cole was something of a business genius. Under his leadership, the company's profits had increased 5-fold. The company he started himself was doing even better. After handing my dad's company over to me, he also transferred half of his own company's shares to me. I don't really know much about business, so he's still the one in charge of operations. My daughter and I are just in charge of collecting and spending the money. I feel like I already spend money quite lavishly. But the balance in my account just keeps skyrocketing. I couldn't help but remark, "Cole, you're way too good at making money." A slight smile touched his lips. "So you two need to keep up with my pace and try to spend more." Thinking of the 3 walk-in closets overflowing with shoes, bags, and dresses, and the playroom piled high with all sorts of toys, my mouth twitched. "We're running out of space for all this stuff." He raised an eyebrow. "That's easy. I'll go get you a warehouse tomorrow." I was dumbfounded. "Isn't that a little over the top?" He smiled. Not at all. As long as you and Zoe are happy, that's all that matters. Cole really dotes on our daughter. He ties her hair in braids every morning. He reads her a bedtime story every night. Whenever he has free time on the weekends, he takes her out to play. And he's completely devoted to me. If I tell him to go east, he won't go west. If I'm even slightly unhappy, he acts like it's a major crisis and does everything he can to make me smile. He's perfect in every way, except for one thing: he has to hold me when he sleeps. The reason is that during the 6 years I was gone, his sleep became terrible, and he had to rely on sleeping pills every night just to fall asleep. I was worried about the side effects of the pills, so I made him quit. He took the opportunity to demand that I become his new sleeping aid. When he holds me, his sleep does indeed get a little better. But he's a human furnace, and sometimes I get too hot and try to slip out of his arms after he's fallen asleep. But the moment I push him away, he jolts awake and says in a panic, "Chris, don't leave me." He's always had such a calm, deadpan face. It's rare to see him so scared and insecure. I have to give in, returning to his arms and soothing him softly. "I'm not going anywhere, I'm not going anywhere. Go back to sleep." Only then does he relax, his strong arms wrapping around me as he closes his eyes and drifts back to sleep. Zoe even teased him about it once. "Daddy, you're like Mommy's little accessory. Wherever she goes, you have to follow." Cole actually seemed to approve of the title. "Yep. I just can't be without your mom, and I can't be without you. You're both my treasures." Zoe took the opportunity to hug his arm and act cute. "Daddy, since I'm your treasure, can I have one extra piece of candy today?" Cole was completely powerless against our daughter's charms. He pinched her cheek. "Yes, but only one extra. And you have to rinse your mouth right after." Zoe kissed his cheek and said with a sunny smile, "Thanks, Daddy. You're the best." Watching the two of them, I couldn't help but smile too. For months after we got back together, Cole and I had our wedding. He insisted on making it a grand affair. The floral arch was tall and filled with my favorite champagne roses. The wedding dress was couture, its train adorned with pink diamonds. It was truly expensive, but it was also truly beautiful. Cole designed our wedding rings himself and had them custom made. He invited most of our friends to witness our happiness. Kristen and Sam came too. They looked stunning together, a perfect match. But the happiest person that day was Zoe. She carried a flower basket, wore a beautiful little dress, and served as our flower girl. After hopping around all day, she finally got tired and fell asleep before 9 o'clock that night. Cole carried her to the kids' room, took off her shoes, tucked her in, and kissed her forehead before coming back to the master bedroom. He's become incredibly clingy. The moment he walked in, he hugged me and kissed me for a solid half hour. My tongue was numb by the time he finally let me go. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. "Can you control yourself? My lips are about to swell up from you chewing on them," he said shamelessly, "but I haven't kissed you enough." With that, he pounced on me again. Oh my God, I give up. How did the guy who wouldn't let me kiss him even once turn into such a kissing monster?